Yeah, so I'm live. And it's a little early, so I'm going to give it a couple minutes for people to show up, and then we'll get started. So, just going to sit here quietly. I'm talking to my wife for the nobody that's sitting here right now. So. I'm sure it can play back so they can start from the beginning, so I'm just walking it letting. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started and start with a big thank you to literally everybody. When I first started this Facebook page, I was really doing this on my personal page for a really, really, really long time, and I decided to kind of segment my posts so it could hopefully reach a wider audience than just my friends and family. So I started this page and I just started posting positive things, which was kind of my only objective, is just to try to change the algorithm. Having a background in marketing and sales and technology, I realized that I could sit around and complain about the algorithm, but it would probably make more sense if I actually did something about it. With a lot of negativity and a lot of turmoil and trauma and all of that stuff filling everybody's feed, I thought it would be an interesting social experiment to just be authentically and organically me. And for the people who actually know me personally, and the people who don't, who see all of the love and positivity stuff, that's not me pretending. That is actually what I'm usually like most of the time, not always. So I decided to make a Facebook page. We usually build these for our clients in a multitude of different spaces. For once, I want to do it for me. So I started sharing some positivity, got a little bit of traction, and then literally, if it wasn't for Laura Starr, which I think almost anybody watching this video knows her or knows of her, because most of you guys follow me because of her, she shared a post, and then I kind of skyrocketed just a little bit. Then she shared another post, and it skyrocketed again. And then I was sitting around 900 followers on this page. And then I shared a video, which was a little uncomfortable for me. I'm used to being behind the camera. We work a lot in, like I said, the marketing and multimedia space. So we're filming documentaries and stuff for people a lot. But I'm always behind the camera, directing or producing or editing, that kind of stuff with my wife. So getting in front of the camera was a little uncomfortable at first for me. Though I coach people on how to do it, doing it yourself, I guess, is a whole different thing. So I did my first video, and I had sent a message to Laura, and I was like, I just did my first video, just a really quick, awkward one, and what if nobody watches it? And the typical things that I think people would say when they, hi Michelle, thank you. Where was I at? So I sent that message to Laura and had told her, like, what if nobody watches it? And so she watched it and told me I did a great job, which I'm a Libra, so I enjoy positive feedback. And then she shared it, which put me well over my 1,000 subscriber mark, which, again, I had no goals. I just wanted to share positivity, and if it caught traction, great. If it didn't, oh well. I was really doing it just so I can express all of these thoughts that at times can be rambling. If you ask my wife, I can go on tangents, which is why I have a timer going right now, because she made me turn that on, so I don't talk for days. So this started as an experiment, which kind of leads to what psychospiritualism is, or psychospiritualist, which is something that I get a whole lot of. A lot of people don't know what it is, and I was a little hesitant to even take it on as a moniker at first. Thank you, Allison. I really appreciate that. I first learned of the term psychospiritualist from a gentleman named Mark Serto, who is a client and, more importantly, a friend. And I don't know what his answer to this is, but to me, he's a mentor. If you're not familiar with him, he is the original sound audio engineer for the Monroe Institute. Most people, if you don't know the Monroe Institute, you probably have heard of the CIA document, the Gateway Project. So kind of how I connected to psychospiritualism, Mark Serto, the Monroe Institute, and ultimately with you guys here. I think it was maybe 2020, maybe 2019. My best friend that I grew up with sent me the CIA document and said, "Welcome to the rabbit hole," knowing that I love conspiracy, I love research, I love all kinds of stuff. So I started looking into the CIA document, which a lot of you guys have probably seen. Um, and hi to Australia. Um, so I started reading this document, and I realized, I think it's page 25, 26, or 27, it might be 26, was a missing page in that CIA document. Now, some people have read the document and just didn't realize there was a missing page, but me being overly analytical like I am, I realized the missing page was gone, but that wasn't really the interesting part. The interesting part was what that missing page, the page before and the page after. So if you're familiar with the CIA document, it's a report from the Army back, I think, in the 70s. Sorry if I don't know the exact date off the top of my head, but me too. So I started doing this research. The page before it, I'm going to stop responding to comments because I'm going to get sidetracked. But after I get through all of this, I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have, and I love answering questions, and I really love sharing everything I know, which, like I said, is kind of a lot. So anyway, so reading this document, this program happened in the 70s by the U.S. Army, and it was kind of an offshoot of a couple programs that were going on at the time, which was the militarization of consciousness. And they found a place called the Monroe Institute in Virginia, run by an extraordinary gentleman, Bob Monroe, who had some success in business and then used his money to kind of create a nonprofit organization to kind of replicate an out-of-body experience he had when he was a kid. So that Monroe Institute, it was in the 80s, my wife said. Sorry. I said that I didn't know the exact date. So I'm reading this document, and I look up the Monroe Institute, and I start exploring a little bit, and they're still around. If you haven't checked them out, check out the Monroe Institute's website, and their Expanding on Consciousness podcast, which is also hosted by Mark Serto, is absolutely fantastic. So the page before and the page after of this document, it kind of details how they did this experiment with a group of military personnel to replicate out-of-body experiences, which Bob Monroe had, along with an entire staff, and Mark Serto created this audio technology called HemiSync, which my thoughts are it's like the precursor to what we kind of commonly refer to as binaural beats, but this is a little more scientific in nature. It's Bob Monroe would play audio, binaural beats, one tone in one ear and one tone in the other ear, and your brain can't focus on both, so it focuses in the middle. And then they would track your brain waves to see what frequency was there, and they had already mapped people's brain frequencies who had out-of-body experiences. And so what they're trying to do is then replicate that using an audio technology, which created the Gateway program and a plethora of other just mind-altering technologies using science. So that was really the beginning of psychospiritualism, which kind of stands for psycho meaning mind and spiritualism, obviously spiritualism. So marrying science and mysticism into a unified theory of consciousness and functioning. So the government comes along and they put these soldiers into the program, and then they start experimenting to see if it was real, if it was true. And a lot of people watching this or part of these groups, we already knew this existed. Like, it's kind of like UFO disclosure. Yeah, we know. We've known for a while. But this was a relatively new concept back in the 70s and 80s. And so they proved that it was real, measurable, and validated. Now, coming up to that missing page, it was, if this is all true, which it is, then what does that mean for God? What does it say about God? How will people respond to God? How will the entire belief structure of society change, shift, and alter now that we know that we are so much more than our physical bodies? And that was the missing page. I have a lot of background in a lot of things. I was kicked out of my house when I was 12. I've lived on my own for a very long time. Drop out in my second attempt at ninth grade. I promise you I'm really smart. It just it wasn't challenged doesn't matter. And then I ended up, for lack of a better word, joining a Christian cult in South Carolina when I was growing up. And as much of a negative connotation as that word has, and Christianity has, that kind of stuff, that was actually really influential for me. Because that was my first real introduction to any sort of spiritualism. Because as being, a homeless teenager living on the streets, I was a drug addict. I overdosed and died when I believe it was around 16. This was a whole different world of acceptance and understanding that I hadn't really noticed or had before, like a family and a structure, which is, I'm sure, how most people get pulled into these types of things. So I was really gung-ho about it. When I got in, I just jumped right in, and I'm like, all or nothing kind of person. If I'm going to do something, I'm just going to do it. Long story short, right after I really committed to being part of this community, both of the people who ran it apparently had separate dreams and came to me and told me that I was the Antichrist and that I was sent to bring down their church, and so I was no longer able to attend. I think that really started because I was trying to understand, Christianity, and I had said, they say God has created all things. What about aliens? Did God create aliens? And that was apparently the trigger, that one of those questions you can't ask. And again, before anybody gets into these comments about Christianity or cults and how they function, just know that I truly believe there is no good or bad in the world. There is only what's right or wrong for us right now. And at that time, that was really important for me, because had that not happened, I probably would have continued, and who knows where I would have ended up. So that was my first experience with Christianity. But after that, it really triggered this passion in me to know more, to understand more, and again, growing up as a teenager and drugs and all that stuff, I didn't really have exposure even after that, up until 2020, 2019, where I started exploring altered states of consciousness through probably a lot of the methods that most people do. In comes my best friend who sends me that document, re-triggers my consciousness exploration, and to really compound on that, in 2020, I ended up getting a kidney stone, and it caused an infection that actually made me go septic, and I was standing in our kitchen, and I just kind of lost balance, and having died previously, when I was 16, I already knew what that felt like. I already knew kind of that process, and side note, what comes after, but that's not relevant to the story right now. And so I looked at my wife, and I tried not to panic, because she is the panicker and I'm typically not. I said, okay, don't freak out. I'm going to die. I need to get to the hospital. So we get out to the car. She's driving, and she's trying to get through red lights, and finally I'm gone. I'm out. Next thing I remember, I wake up in the hospital, and they had explained that I went septic. I got into an ambulance and things like that. But that really compounded my awakenness, I guess, my consciousness journey for me. And to tie into a book about the video that I had done earlier today about the functioning states of conscious participation, waking consciousness, I've learned that people find this illumination, this woke, whatever word you want to call it. They traditionally find it in three ways. It's either, like, a lot of people, especially nowadays, you'll notice in a lot of kids, like, they're just born with this understanding, this connectedness, this unity that a lot of people from my generation didn't have. The second is it's a gradual thing over time. So over time, you slowly gain awareness. And then the most prevalent and prominent, and the one that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, myself included, is that traumatic shake, that wake up. And I do a lot of free coaching calls in my messenger a lot, with a lot of people who are experiencing that trauma awakening. And it usually starts with confusion and anger and fear, and then ultimately ends up in this, but why? And a really good friend of mine that I actually met through here, I was just speaking with him yesterday, and he had said, but, like, why do we have to be shaken awake? And the way that I try to explain it to people is everybody perceives this reality as the real world, and then the afterlife is the other, the else, that's the dream. But realistically, or just in my experience, I'm sorry, in my experience, this is the dream, and the after is the reality. Now, your job here isn't, maybe it is, everybody has their own journey, but I see a lot of people saying that it's their job, their purpose to break the matrix, to escape the matrix, and all of that kind of negative connotation because of this trauma and this negativity and how like the world doesn't align with our preferences and our expectations. But the honest truth is, and again, coming from somebody who has been to the other side and had some of these conscious experiences, I've learned that like free will is a fundamental principle and law that all things must abide by. We always have to agree to what we experience. Now, we may not like that. That may not sound good or feel good to hear, that the shitty things that happen to us, we accept it. But we like to say in our house that there's not always a good choice, but there's always a choice. Sometimes it's a choice between two things that you don't like, but you always have to choose that situation. Even if the option might say be death, you still have to choose. Whether that is to take action or to not. And I lost my place because I was rambling again. So going back to the Monroe Institute and Mark Serto, so I investigated this document, and I was looking for this missing page, and I got into some deep rabbit holes, and somebody, I believe maybe on Reddit, said there's a gentleman named Mark, who I think he's only on Facebook, but I think he has the missing page. And so I reached out to Mark, just randomly, some guy on the internet, and said, "Hi, Mark, you have no idea who I am, but I came across the CIA document, and I was told that you may have the missing page." He didn't have the missing page, unfortunately, at that time, but I did join his Facebook group, which is the Triad Mind. That's actually a program that he puts on himself. And I started watching what he was posting, and I still didn't know who he was at this point. So he ends up posting that he was looking for a web developer. If you're not familiar with my wife and myself, the spiritual endeavor, the psychospiritualism movement, this isn't a profitable thing for us. We have multiple other companies that we run outside of the space that is predominantly marketing and multimedia and that kind of stuff, but this is a passion project for us. So I saw an opportunity. I'm like, "Hi, Mark. I know that you have some connections in the Monroe Institute. We could probably do a website for you." So I think he might have said no a couple times, and long story short, we come around and he gives us a call. What are you laughing at? Am I rambling?
No, I was just laughing because said no a couple times.
He did say no.
Talked to his spirit guides.
Talked to his spirit guides. However he approached it. And ultimately we ended up on a call with Mark Serto, and that's where I discovered who he actually was. Again, Mark Serto was a sound engineer. When Monroe Institute started, Bob Monroe was looking for a brilliant audio technician to create these different audio programs that can trigger these altered states of consciousness in like 30 minutes. And he was the guy, he was the man who made this stuff, like absolutely brilliant, mind-blowing talent. And so at this point, I'm a yes man. Like, that's just who I am. I'm like, I'll do it for free. And my wife said, no. And so we got on a call with Mark, and we're having this conversation, and he's like, well, if you guys ever meet him, and I really hope that I could have him on a call soon for you guys, because he's absolutely extraordinary and he's changed my life in so many ways. But he said, if it's meant to be, it will be. And at that time, me and my wife were struggling real hard in our business. We had just hit a real hard, rough spot. And I'm like, I don't know how I'm just going to magically come up with money enough that I can just do something for free or whatever that was going to be. Because at that time, we were typically charging a lot of money for the platforms that we build. But wouldn't you know it, alignment being what it is, synchronicities falling into place, we ended up coming up with the funding, and Mark was able to pay us as well, and we started developing his platform for his program. So after Bob Monroe had passed, Mark actually left the Monroe Institute and kind of went on his own journey, his own path, still using this technology that he helped create to develop his own program, which I mentioned, the Triad Mind. Where the Monroe Institute is very diverse. They have such a diverse selection. A lot of people know them just for the out-of-body experience stuff, Mark Serto stuff is more about just the exploration of consciousness in multiple degrees of experience. Um, and so we started kind of learning from him, and really starting to consume his content. And I, I'm at a loss of words for how impactful it was to us. The Monroe Institute stuff, I had their audio programs. My wife and I did it once, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times a day for, 2.5 years, I think, for a really long time. We were actively and doing this and using it and learning it and having just these extraordinary experiences. But this was the older content. And here we are with Mark Serto, who has this updated, expanding unconsciousness program type thing, and it just blew my mind. So on one of those calls, he puts on some webinars from time to time, and we were in one, and he mentioned the word psychospiritualist or psychospiritualism, and I had been looking for a word to describe, I guess, for lack of a better word, my belief system or my structure for understanding the world, this one and all others. And psychospiritualism, man, it just hit. Like it just hit home for me. And without even asking at the time what that really meant to Mark, I started kind of adapting that to what it meant to me, with the obvious being psycho being mind and spiritualism meaning mysticism. For me, it really developed into such a broader concept, because it's really, at its essence, it's about duality. It's about something that used to be perceived as contradictory or against or combative with each other. Like, go to talk to anybody in the science field and ask them about spiritualism or religion, they're going to shut off. And the same with the other side. If you go and talk about science or spiritualism, a lot of people in that space just disregard it. And again, being the Libra that I am, I'm all about balance. I'm all about trying to find that perfect constructive balance in my life, in the world, in the universe, however I can find it. And if I can't, I need to manifest it, or I need to attempt to bring balance to that. And so I started exploring this concept of psychospiritualism is so much more than just the mind and the spirit. It's all duality, and it's accepting duality, despite what you might hear of enlightenment meaning unity, and unity is important, but duality, unity is the end goal. It's what we're all going to get, no matter how we get there, no matter how long it takes, we're all going to get there. But what, to me, I discovered was really special and kind of almost backwards from the status quo, was that duality, unlike unity, where unity was just that default state, duality was a conscious decision. Whether you believe in God, the universe, the quantum field, whatever you believe in, it doesn't matter, because duality and unity is a concept that transcends all belief systems. And I realized that duality was a conscious decision to create, which means that it had purpose, which means that all things that we experience have purpose. The simulation, the matrix, whatever you want to call it, it has purpose. Our ego or persona, whatever you call it, has purpose. It was all created from this potential to do something with it. And that's where I really started adopting this mentality that tools are neither good nor bad. Morality is a human concept that's determined by the use and the user. And that's what I started adapting. And at first, like, this was not a positive concept for a lot of people. I would share this, and the amount of toxicity that I would just get from pushing back on this concept that you have to be always in a state of presence, that your chakras always have to be in alignment, like that's the purpose, and you have to be enlightened, and you have to be clear of thought. And I'm like, well, then why do we have all these other options then? Is it just to be a distraction, or is it a tool that we can use to generate something of value, something real, something brilliant or extraordinary? And so I started kind of tinkering that concept and dove more into my spiritual journey. I read a lot. If you talk to me, you know that, because I will always suggest probably 1 to 5 books in the course of a 5-minute conversation. But so I started reading all of this spiritual text, and at that time I still had a little bit of trauma around my youth, around that Christianity and that Antichrist, which sounds silly, but I really held on to that. And so I wouldn't even touch a Bible. And to be honest with you, I still haven't read the Bible, but I'm aware of its concepts and its stories and its narratives. But what I realized most of all is it's the same story no matter where you look spiritually. They all call it different names. They might have some different variants, some different details, but overall, everybody was saying the same thing, just in a different way. Then it reminded me of the Tower of Babel, that confusion. But even with the Tower of Babel, there's still a solitary message that that has to be distorted. And then I realized, well, maybe my purpose here is to understand what this message is and find these commonalities, these similarities, and then consciously create something with that. And then I was like, well, if it's always the same message over on this side, let's say the right of religion, spiritualism, God, and all of that, then I wonder if that same concept is over on what we call the scientific left. The ones that are all about facts and objectivity and experimentation and proof and evidence. So you have faith and evidence, but they're all saying the same thing. What about over here? So I started looking into quantum physics, and it sounds silly being a ninth grade dropout, but understanding science and quantum physics especially just comes very natural to me. I understand it, at least conceptually. I'm not a mathematician, but at least from a creative standpoint, I understand conceptually and parabolically what it's attempting to illustrate. And when you know it, saying the same thing. They're saying the same thing. And just like an easy example of that is as above, so below. You're also looking at a holographic universe, which is a reflection, or you can connect it to, I'm drawing a blank, to quantum entanglement. So as above, so below, quantum entanglement. So you would just find all these similarities, and again, it's the same concepts, the same stories, and it's science, spiritual. It doesn't matter what you call it, because the Tower of Babel is just this confusion that, again, in the spiritual space, a lot of people get angry about or uncomfortable about because confusion causes anger, blah, blah, blah. And what I realized, again, is it wasn't an adversity towards me. It wasn't something negative that was happening to me, this confusion. It was a challenge. It was an opportunity. It was a video game within the simulation, a video game within a video game that I could start to unscramble and see how that can change my life. Like a lot of you probably, I felt like I was schizophrenic at one point. The amount of things when you explore these really abstract concepts, these concepts that are that were socially programmed to not consider, to not talk about, to not say, you really come off as, like, there was one point, I'm not kidding, and I don't care what this says about me, I was having a bit of a panic attack, and I was bawling my eyes out to my wife. I'm like, I can't save everybody. I can't save anybody. Like, what do I do with this knowledge, this awareness that of the system that I've uncovered, and how can I help people navigate that? And because I had tried for so long to explain these things to people, and I would get negative pushback, sometimes toxic, like just vulgar responses, and I'm like, I can't help anybody. And it took me a long time, and my wife had to talk to me a lot about this, is realizing that it's not my purpose to help anybody, to change anything, to change anybody. And this is going to resonate with a lot of you, that the goal is to just be, and let that frequency resonate with those around you who are prepared and ready for that engagement. So going all the way back to psychospiritualism, to me it became a moniker for the change that I really wanted to create in the world. It's I want to bring education, I want to bring enlightenment, and in the way that I understand it is, yes, it's okay to balance your chakras. That is an objective. That's what you should aim for. But once you're there, your energy system, and I've said this before, your energy system is not it's a tool, not a trophy. So once you get it in alignment, once you get it into a balance, yes, you could stay there, but you're just sitting on this perfect energy that's magic. Like, in every sense of the word, it's magical when you can get in this balance. So why sit on it? Why not use that energy and consciously choose to participate in the system? Well, yes, we can break the system. We can break out of the matrix. What if we just made it better? Like, what if we improved on it because it has a purpose? It's a tool, right? It's my timer. So Anyway, so kind of where I'm at, an explanation of what psychospiritualism is. It is the exploration of combining extremities, dualities, polarities, whatever you call it, into a comprehensive, unified theory that may not work for everybody, but at least it gives you some kind of guidelines, some framework to operate within.
Or some questions.
Or some questions. It'll at least create curiosity, which if you ever get to meet Mark Soto, it's a great word that he uses a lot, is to generate curiosity, because at the end of the day, that's all it takes, guys. It just takes a question of what if, and that's it, right? And then just let that roll and see what opens up to you. It could be scary, it could be good, it could be bad. No matter what it is, just remember the universe is always conspiring in your favor. Nothing is out to truly harm you. It's just there for your growth. And sometimes we don't like what that feels like. But I promise you, you can choose what to do with what you're given. You can consciously participate. You can use your energy systems, your consciousness, these concepts of out-of-body experiences, and do something completely different and have an extraordinary in-body experience, and actively be present, participate, and create something worth experiencing. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do here. Again, this isn't my business. This is something that's just really passionate to me, because I have been through so many ups and downs to find myself in this position where I have such a comprehensive understanding of some very abstract concepts that I just feel driven to share, to let other people experience that, and at bare minimum to create just that spark of curiosity that maybe gets you started or gets you more in alignment with where you're going. Last thing I wanted to cover is two things. Piggybacking on this is not our business. It is my purpose to try to change the algorithm, both on Facebook, social media, the matrix, the simulation. That's part of what I feel called to do. So yes, we are selling some t-shirts on jdduncan.com, and it isn't to make money. It's really just to create something that's positive and constructive that people can really wear and start changing the matrix algorithm by putting Be the Light out there, by putting all these positive things out there. We actually, for everybody on this call or who watches this video, if you go to jdduncan.com, I'm giving a 33% discount to everybody here. Just use the coupon code I love you, and I don't know if caps matter or not, but capital I, capital L, capital Y. So I love you as a coupon code, and get 33% off of any shirt on there, and we're gonna have more on there. And again, the point of this is to start changing the narrative through visuals, through what we share, what we communicate. If you do want to help me in this sharing of the Psychospiritualist movement, get a shirt, bare minimum, share this content, share my content, or what I would also love is if you can continue to pay this forward and share positive content as well. Most of you guys are, like, that's why I follow you. It's probably why you're here, because we resonate with each other. But just keep being the light, even in the darkest times for yourself, and more importantly, in the darkest places where it's needed. Light shine brightest in the darkest rooms. So with that being said, oh, one more thing. You might have seen a video earlier. And next week I'm filming the first episode of what I want to be an ongoing series called Magical Features and Where to Find Them, a play off of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. And what I want to do is I'm trying to find all of the people out there that are doing things like this, that are having these conversations about consciousness and enlightenment, and trying to really move that ball forward. And whether it's just a meme queen, Laura, I'm looking at you, you're my meme dealer and you know that, or somebody who is having these very long posts like I do, which not a lot of people read, but no matter who you are magic. And as whether you're in the scientific sphere or the spiritual sphere, it's important to put a spotlight on those individuals who are doing that work. My first guest next week is a really good friend of mine, Jessica. She goes by Your Spirit Guide 1. If you haven't seen her on there, you've got to follow her. She's great. But I don't want to spoil it because we're going to do our interview next week. So going forward, I'm thinking every Wednesday at 3:33 p.m. is where I'm going to release a new episode starting next week. We're going to release our first one, and I want to focus on who you are, what you do in the spiritual space, and really how you bring balance to the system and how you generate positive change for everybody you come in contact with, whether it's just a couple people in a small town or if you're on a global international scale. Every movement forward matters, and I want to start showcasing people like that, and getting them the platform that they deserve, and the resonance that they work so hard for, and get them in front of everybody. Whether you buy the stuff that they do or not, I'm sure for them that would help. I know for small businesses how important that is, being in the consulting field. So I encourage you to support the people who are doing the light work always. But if not, at bare minimum, just allowing yourself to experience what others are doing, maybe that'll give you a little bit more of community and support, and let you know to step out of your comfort zone and do the things that you're uncomfortable with, because it's worth it. So that's my little spiel. Last, if you guys are here, I know, Allison, you said you are getting ready to go. Masters of the Universe shirt, it's perfect. If anybody has any questions, please, I'm an open book. I won't take a lot more of your time because I've been going for 35 minutes and my wife gave me a 30-minute timeline. So if anybody has any questions.
That's really nice too, though.
She's super nice, though. Just kidding. I'm kidding. She's my best friend, and she's fantastic. And she's working away over there because we're supposed to be working on some client stuff right now. But I just wanted to take this time to say thank you guys, because I made it over, I think, almost 1,200 followers at this point, which is just mind-blowing to me, that many people are interested. So if anybody has any questions about anything I said, any of that, please don't hesitate to ask in the chat if you want to, if people are still watching. I am getting a lot. What did I miss? Let's see. Allison, thank you. Oh, okay. All right, so if there aren't any questions, or if there is, and I tell everybody this, again, my inbox is full and my wife might murder me for saying this, but if you do have questions, you can hit my messenger. I always respond, maybe not right away, but I do always respond. And I encourage you, if you're not already in the Psychospiritualist Beginners to Advanced Facebook group, please jump in there. We don't have a lot of activity yet, but the group is growing itself. While me and my wife are doing our businesses, we're using the things we're developing in this business-to-business world over here to really fund and build a platform for this movement. And I can't talk a lot about it right now, but I promise you that I will share more. But in a nutshell, we're building a social learning platform that is going to be housing all of this kind of content in a way that everybody can actually use it to go out and be the light, literally or figuratively, whatever. I guess not literally. Literally, you would be a light. Whatever. Anyway, we're all we're all light particles and vibrations anyway, right? So that being said, join the group if you haven't already. We're going to have a lot of updates. Make sure to check out next Wednesday's the first episode of Magical Features and Where to Find Them with my friend Spirit Guide 1. And then we have a few other guests already lined up for the following weeks, and they just keep on getting, well, I'm not going to say better because all of them are absolutely magical, but you'll just have to wait to see it. So join the group. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I really want to be a support system, community for people who are going through some of these consciousness changes and may not quite understand the bigger picture. And I'm here to be a resource for you. I'm here to be a tool for you. This is truly, for me, an act of love and service to give back to a universe that has given back to me so abundantly, and in so many ways. And a lot of people will say traumatically, but I will say it's been an opportunity to be called to serve in any way I can. And even if that's sharing memes or a couple videos or rambles, like, I'm game. Also check out the t-shirts. We're going to have a couple new ones coming too, but just use coupon code I love you for 33% off. All of the stuff that we make from that, which is very small, we are putting into an account that's going to help continue to fund this platform for the Psychospiritualist movement. Like and share, subscribe, and if not, either way, thank you for being here. For following me, for all of you guys' absolutely outpouring of love and support for me. I appreciate you guys, and when I say I love you, I truly mean that in every shape, way that there can be. Thank you. So till next time, talk again soon. Love you. Bye. Oh, how do I turn this off?